The morning air was calm, soft, and still, like the world was holding its breath. She stepped outside her small apartment building, breathing in the quiet sounds of the neighborhood waking up. Birds chirped faintly from the trees lining the street, and the distant hum of cars filled the background. She liked this time of the day when everything felt simple and peaceful, before the bustle of work and errands began. Her life was modest. She didn't have much, but she had enough. Enough to live, enough to care, and enough to notice the small things that others often ignored. As she walked down the familiar path toward the corner store, she saw him again. The child. He was small, probably no older than 10, hiding under the overhang of a crumbling building. His clothes were torn and dirty, and his face carried a shadow she couldn't ignore. Not the normal kind of tiredness that children sometimes had, but a deeper, heavier sadness that seemed to weigh on him like a stone. His eyes darted quickly whenever someone walked by, suspicious and fearful, as if expecting something terrible to happen at any moment. She paused for a moment, unsure what to do. Normally she kept to herself, focused on her routines, but something inside her wouldn't let her walk past. She crouched slightly, trying to make her presence gentle and non-threatening. "Hey there," she said softly, careful not to startle him. He flinched but didn't run. His eyes were wide and wary, a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Hi," he muttered, barely above a whisper. His voice was soft, almost as if he were afraid it might attract attention. "What's your name?" she asked, sitting down slowly on the curb so she wouldn't seem imposing. "No one calls me anything," he said, looking down at the ground. She swallowed hard. The loneliness and hurt in his voice struck her deeply. "Well, I'm just going to call you friend for now," she said, forcing a small smile. She reached into her bag and pulled out a bottle of water and a small snack she had bought for herself. "Here, take this. You look hungry?" He hesitated, then took it cautiously, holding it as if it were a treasure. Slowly he began to eat. She didn't rush him, knowing that trust couldn't be forced. For a few minutes they sat in silence, the sounds of the neighborhood around them as he cautiously took small bites of food. Over the next few days, she began to notice him more often. He stayed in the same areas, always alone, always wary. She learned little things about him: how he avoided eye contact with certain neighbors, how he flinched when someone raised their voice, how he clutched his backpack tightly as if it contained all his world's security. One afternoon, she decided she couldn't wait any longer. She approached him slowly, hands visible, voice calm. "You don't have to be afraid," she said. "I just want to help. I'm not going to hurt you." His eyes welled up with tears for the first time she had seen. "Why would anyone help me?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "Because everyone deserves kindness," she said simply, "and because I know what it feels like to be scared and alone." That moment changed something. He hesitated, then slowly began to open up. Little by little he spoke about home, about the yelling, about the nights he went without food, about the pain that came not just from hunger, but from feeling invisible, unwanted, and unloved. She listened quietly, letting him pour out the truth of his life without interruption. She didn't judge, didn't scold, she just listened. And listening, she realized, was perhaps the first gift he had received in a long time. It became a routine. She visited him every day after work, sometimes bringing extra food, sometimes just sitting and talking. Slowly, he began to trust her. He told her stories of school, the few friends he had, the dreams he dared to imagine. She offered guidance without pressure, a safe place where he could just be a child, free from fear. But helping him wasn't simple. She quickly realized the danger surrounding him. There were signs of abuse, bruises she tried not to stare at too hard, frequent absences from school, and stories that hinted at harsh treatment at home. She knew she couldn't do it alone. The thought of what could happen if she interfered too boldly made her stomach tighten. Still, the thought of leaving him to suffer was unbearable. One evening, after weeks of careful observation, she made the decision to act. She contacted child services, not out of distrust but out of necessity. She had spent time building trust with the boy, and she knew this had to be handled delicately. She didn't want to frighten him, so she explained carefully what might happen. "I just want you to be safe," she said. "You deserve a place where you can be happy, where no one will hurt you." His fear was palpable. "Will they take me away forever?" he asked. "They will make sure you're safe," she assured him, "and I will be here, even if we have to see each other in different ways." The days that followed were tense. She accompanied social workers to his home, navigating her own fears as they faced his family's anger and denial. She saw the pain etched into the child's face, but also the tiny flicker of hope she had ignited. He was scared, yes, but he began to understand that someone cared, that someone was willing to stand up for him when the world seemed indifferent. Eventually, the child was placed in foster care, in a loving and safe environment. The transition wasn't easy. He missed the streets, the small freedoms he had, and the familiarity of the only life he had known. But he was alive, fed, and slowly learning that he could trust again. And she visited, steadily offering comfort, reassurance, and a consistent presence. Through all of this, she faced judgment from her own community. Some questioned her motives, others whispered that she should have minded her own business. She ignored it. She knew the weight of kindness was often heavy and misunderstood. She had chosen this path not for recognition, but because it was right. As months turned into years, she watched the child grow in small, remarkable ways. His laughter became less hesitant, his steps more confident. Schoolwork improved, friendships blossomed, and for the first time he allowed himself to dream. She cheered silently from the sidelines, proud of every small victory, every sign that he was beginning to heal. And though the journey was long and filled with moments of doubt and exhaustion, she never regretted her decision. In saving him, she discovered a new depth to her own strength. She learned that courage wasn't always loud or heroic. It could be quiet, steady, and rooted in care for another human being. And most importantly, she learned that sometimes changing one life could ripple into countless others, though you might never see the full effect yourself. Little did she know. Her kindness, her courage, and her patience were planting seeds that would bear fruit in ways she could not yet imagine. The boy she had helped, fragile and scared at the beginning, was slowly becoming someone who could survive, thrive, and eventually repay the kindness that had saved his life. After the child was placed in a safe foster home, life seemed to move forward, but not without its challenges. She continued her visits, each trip a mixture of hope and worry. Sometimes, when she walked through the door of the foster family's home, she could see the change in him immediately. His posture was more relaxed, his eyes brighter, and a small smile often greeted her. But other days he was quiet, withdrawn, or tense, as if carrying invisible weights she couldn't remove. She learned quickly that healing was not a straight path. Her own life continued in its usual rhythm. Work, chores, small joys, and ordinary routines filled her days. Yet her thoughts often drifted back to him. She worried if he had eaten enough, if someone had been too strict, or if he was feeling alone. Each concern gnawed at her, and she realized that the bond they had formed was deeper than she expected. She had not only become a protector, she had become a constant presence in his life, even from the outside. The foster family was kind and attentive, but she knew no home could erase the scars of neglect overnight. The child sometimes spoke of missing the streets he had once wandered, the freedom and familiarity, even though it had been unsafe. She listened, offering gentle guidance, helping him understand that safety and comfort could now be found in new ways. "You don't have to forget your past to move forward," she told him one afternoon. "But you can learn that life can be different now. You deserve better, and it's okay to let yourself feel safe." Despite the stability, moments of tension and fear occasionally resurfaced. He would flinch at raised voices, react sharply to discipline, or retreat into silence. She learned to be patient, understanding that trust was not built in a day. Her presence alone, unwavering and consistent, became a lifeline. She celebrated every small victory. A laugh shared, a story told, a smile given freely. Yet she faced her own share of skepticism from the world around her. Some neighbors whispered that she was overstepping, that children should be left to their families, or that she was putting herself in unnecessary danger. At first, she felt doubt creeping in. She wondered if her efforts truly mattered, if she was doing enough, or if the child would ever fully heal. But she pushed those thoughts aside. She knew that the world's opinions were small compared to the life she was trying to protect. Every act of kindness mattered, even if unseen by others. Over time, the bond between them grew stronger. During each visit, he began to open up more about his dreams, fears, and experiences. He spoke of wanting to learn, to play, to belong. She encouraged him to express himself, to explore the small joys he had been denied. She taught him to read better, to write stories, to imagine worlds beyond the walls of his difficult past. She never forced him, but offered guidance with gentle persistence. There were days that tested her patience. The child would lash out unexpectedly, frustrated by memories he could not control or by emotions he did not fully understand. She never reacted with anger. Instead, she listened, acknowledged his feelings, and reminded him that he was safe. Over time, he began to understand that expressing anger or fear did not mean he was alone or unloved. These moments, difficult as they were, became stepping stones toward healing. The community around them slowly began to notice the changes. People who once doubted her intentions began to see the difference a caring presence could make in a child's life. Teachers remarked on his improved behavior and focus. Neighbors mentioned his growing confidence, and even strangers would occasionally comment on the boy's resilience. She never sought recognition, but the acknowledgement reminded her that kindness, though often quiet, could ripple outward in ways unseen. One afternoon, as she sat on the small couch in the foster home, she watched him draw. He was sketching a scene of a park with children playing freely, laughter in the air. The lines were simple but full of life. "It's beautiful," she said softly. He shrugged, glancing at her. "I just wanted to draw somewhere happy. I never really had a place like this before." Her chest tightened. She knew that he was beginning to believe in the possibility of happiness. It wasn't a complete healing, not yet, but it was enough to keep moving forward. She encouraged him, reminding him that life could be different now that he had a chance to grow, learn, and even dream. Meanwhile, she continued to face her own sacrifices. Time spent visiting, helping, and supporting him often meant late nights and early mornings for her. She sometimes missed social events, weekends with friends, or simple rest. Yet she never complained. She had chosen this path, knowing that caring for another human being required dedication, patience, and sometimes hardship. And in return, she received glimpses of transformation, moments of trust, and small victories that made every sacrifice worthwhile. Evenings often found her reflecting quietly. She thought about how fragile life could be, how easily a child could slip through the cracks, and how essential it was for someone to stand up, even when it felt risky or inconvenient. She remembered her own childhood, the moments when someone had offered kindness and the impact it had left. It fueled her determination, reminding her that compassion could shape a life in ways that nothing else could. As the months turned into years, she watched him grow steadily. The fear that once dominated his eyes was slowly replaced with curiosity. The hesitation in his voice became confidence. The walls he had built around himself began to crumble, revealing a young person capable of trust, friendship, and love. She celebrated each change quietly, knowing that progress was not always visible but was always significant. During this time, she also built relationships with others involved in his life. Teachers, social workers, and foster parents came to rely on her insight and dedication. She provided guidance, perspective, and emotional support, ensuring that everyone working with him understood the child's needs, triggers, and potential. She became a bridge between worlds, the past and the future, fear and safety, loneliness and connection. Despite all the progress, she never let herself forget the fragility of his situation. She remained vigilant, watching for signs of distress, setbacks, or emotional strain. Sometimes she would find herself worrying late into the night, imagining the worst and praying for the best. But each time she saw his smile, heard his laughter, or received a small note of appreciation, the worry eased. Her heart swelled with pride at the resilience and courage he displayed every day. There were small, ordinary moments that carried extraordinary significance. Sharing ice cream on a warm afternoon, walking together in the park, reading bedtime stories, or simply sitting quietly on a couch while he sketched. These moments were anchors of normalcy and stability. They were proof that life could be gentle, that safety and love were real, and that a child could heal when nurtured with patience and compassion. Even when she faced exhaustion, frustration, or self-doubt, she never let it show in front of him. She understood the importance of consistency, of being a steady presence in a life that had known little stability. Each day she reminded herself that courage could be quiet, that acts of care mattered even when they seemed small, and that love, patience, and dedication were sometimes the most powerful tools in the world. As he grew, she began to notice subtle changes in how he interacted with others. He learned to speak up for himself, to assert his needs, and to navigate relationships with greater confidence. Teachers mentioned that he was more engaged, friends noticed his loyalty, and foster parents remarked on his emerging sense of independence. These changes, though gradual, were victories. And each victory was a testament to the unwavering support and patience she had provided. Through all of this, she never sought praise or recognition. Her satisfaction came from seeing him thrive, from knowing that her presence had offered him a chance at a better life. She had taken a risk, faced uncertainty, and offered care without expectation. And in return, she witnessed the transformation of a young life from fear and neglect to hope and resilience. Looking back, she realized that this journey had changed her as well. It had taught her that compassion required courage, that patience could heal wounds, and that small, consistent acts of love could create ripples of change far beyond what one might imagine. She understood, more deeply than ever, that the true measure of humanity lay not in wealth, status, or recognition, but in the quiet, selfless acts that gave someone else a chance to live, grow, and flourish. Years passed, and life moved quietly yet steadily. The boy, once small and frightened, had grown into a young teenager. His steps were more confident now, and the shadows that once clung to his eyes had begun to fade. He was still careful, still aware of the dangers that had haunted his early childhood, but he had learned to trust the world in ways he never imagined possible. The woman who had first rescued him watched from the sidelines, proud of the progress he had made, yet always aware that the path to full healing was ongoing and delicate. The teenager had changed in many ways. He was no longer the quiet, withdrawn child hiding from the world. He had begun to speak up in school, to share his thoughts with friends, and to explore interests he had never dared to before. Art had become a refuge for him. He drew constantly, sketches full of energy, hope, and imagination. Each drawing told a story he could not yet put into words. Sometimes he would shyly show her what he had created, and she would marvel at the detail and emotion captured on paper. She encouraged him to keep going, to see that his creativity was a gift, and that his experiences, though painful, could inspire resilience and empathy in ways he might not yet understand. Though the foster home was safe and loving, life was not without challenges. He still wrestled with memories of neglect and abuse. Some nights he would wake suddenly, heart racing, as if danger lurked around every corner. She always made sure he had a place to turn, a voice to listen, and a hand to hold. Her visits had become a lifeline, steady and unwavering. He trusted her completely, knowing that she had never abandoned him even when life became complicated and uncertain. School was both a place of growth and struggle. Teachers recognized his intelligence and potential, but he occasionally struggled with focus and confidence. There were moments when the lingering effects of trauma would resurface: anxiety in group activities, hesitation to speak in class, or frustration at minor setbacks. She met these moments with patience and encouragement. "It's okay to feel scared or unsure," she would tell him. "It doesn't make you weak. It means you're learning, and that's part of growing." Friendships blossomed slowly. He was cautious, watching carefully before allowing someone into his circle. But as he built trust with peers, he discovered the joy of companionship. He laughed more freely, shared stories, and began to develop a sense of belonging. The woman watched these transformations with quiet pride, knowing that each step forward was a testament to resilience, courage, and the power of consistent support. Even as he grew more independent, he still sought her guidance. Decisions about school projects, friendships, and life choices were often discussed with her. He valued her perspective, knowing that her advice came from experience, empathy, and unwavering care. She encouraged him to make his own decisions, to trust his judgment, and to embrace the responsibility that came with growing older. During these years, she also faced the challenges of balancing her own life with her dedication to him. Work responsibilities, personal matters, and daily routines sometimes collided with her visits and support. Yet she never allowed her exhaustion or stress to interfere with her presence in his life. She understood that her consistency was as vital to him as the food he ate or the clothes he wore. Her dedication was a quiet force that shaped his sense of stability and trust. The teenager began to explore his own dreams and aspirations. He spoke of going to college, pursuing a career, and making a difference in the world. She listened with encouragement, helping him set goals, plan steps, and believe in the possibility of a future beyond his past hardships. She reminded him that ambition was not arrogance and that dreaming was a right he had every right to claim. There were also moments of reflection for both of them. He sometimes asked questions about her life, curious about why she had helped him when no one else did. She would smile gently, choosing her words carefully. "I helped because I could," she said. Because it was the right thing to do, and because someone had once done the same for me, or shown me kindness when I needed it most. Kindness is never wasted, even if it takes years to see its full effect. Over time, subtle signs of maturity and growth became more evident. He became more confident in handling conflicts, more empathetic toward others, and more capable of expressing himself clearly. Teachers remarked on his improved communication skills. Friends noticed his growing patience, and the foster family admired his resilience. The woman knew that these changes were not accidental. They were the product of years of steady care, support, and love. Despite all the progress, she remained vigilant. She understood that trauma was never fully erased, and that even small setbacks could challenge his confidence. She continued to provide a listening ear, a comforting presence, and guidance when needed. Her patience never wavered, and her commitment remained steadfast. She had learned that true support required ongoing effort, not just initial intervention. There were quiet moments that left a lasting impression on her. She remembered the first time he laughed without hesitation, the first time he shared a story about school without fear, and the first time he expressed pride in an accomplishment of his own. These moments, small but powerful, were proof that healing was real and possible. They reminded her that her efforts had made a difference, and that her courage and care had helped shape a life in profound ways. During this period, the boy began to reflect on his past in more depth. He thought about the days he had spent hiding, hungry and scared, the nights filled with uncertainty, and the people who had turned their backs on him. He realized that without her intervention, his life could have followed a very different path. Gratitude began to take root in his heart, quietly growing alongside his newfound confidence and sense of self. He also began to notice the ripple effects of her kindness in ways he hadn't before. Teachers who had supported him, neighbors who offered small gestures of encouragement, and foster parents who provided stability all played roles in shaping his world. But he recognized that she had been the catalyst, the one who had taken the first step, the one who had shown him that someone truly cared. The awareness filled him with a desire to honor her efforts, though he didn't yet know how. As he approached his late teenage years, the question of the future loomed large. He thought about college, careers, independence, and the possibility of creating a life beyond the hardships of his childhood. She encouraged him to dream boldly, to plan carefully, and to trust in his abilities. She reminded him that the past could inform his choices but should never define him. "You are capable of more than you know," she told him one evening, "and the world is waiting for you to show it." At the same time, she reflected on the passage of time. She thought about the journey they had shared, from the first encounter when he was a frightened child to this stage where he was growing into a resilient, hopeful young adult. She understood that her role had shifted. She was no longer a constant presence guiding every step, but a steady support cheering him on as he navigated life more independently. The pride she felt was immense, though she never sought recognition. She knew that the impact of her actions would continue to unfold in ways that might never be fully visible. There were moments of quiet triumph. She watched him receive awards at school, hear him read aloud with confidence, and see him form genuine friendships. She celebrated each achievement privately, knowing that these victories were the result of years of care, patience, and unwavering support. She also recognized the ongoing challenges, the emotional scars that lingered, the moments of doubt, and the occasional setbacks, but she faced them with calm determination. The teenager began to think more about giving back, inspired by the kindness he had received. He realized that her actions had changed the trajectory of his life, and he wanted to honor that by helping others. He didn't yet have a clear plan, but the desire to repay her kindness and make a positive impact on the world began to grow. It was a quiet awareness at first, a thought that lingered in the back of his mind, but it was powerful and persistent. Through all of this, their bond remained strong. She had been the first person to show him unconditional care, and that foundation endured. They shared conversations about life, hopes, and fears. They laughed together, debated ideas, and sometimes sat in comfortable silence. She remained a source of guidance and reassurance, a reminder that he was never truly alone. And so, as he moved closer to adulthood, the seeds she had planted began to bear fruit. Confidence, resilience, and hope were growing within him. He had learned to trust, to care, and to dream, and although the world was still full of challenges, he faced it with strength and determination. carrying with him the lessons of kindness, patience, and courage that she had taught him. Little did she know, the impact of her actions would soon come full circle. The young man who had once been frightened, alone, and vulnerable was quietly preparing to honor the person who had changed his life in the most profound way. And one day, in a moment neither of them could yet foresee, he would take the first step to repay her kindness in a way that would remind her that no act of compassion is ever wasted. It had been many years since she first met the frightened child. Life had moved steadily forward, work, routines, small joys, and challenges, but she had never forgotten him. He remained in her heart, a reminder of why she had chosen to act when she did, why she had risked time, energy, and sometimes her own peace to help another human being. She often wondered what he was doing, whether he was happy, and if he remembered her. She didn't dare expect much, knowing that life had many twists and turns, but the thought of him thriving kept her going. One late afternoon, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting golden light across the quiet street, she heard a knock on her door. It was sudden, firm, yet polite. She wasn't expecting anyone. A few times neighbors had stopped by for minor reasons, but no one she knew well enough to knock without warning. Her curiosity stirred. She wiped her hands on her apron, a little hesitant, and opened the door. Standing there was a young man. He looked familiar, yet older, stronger, confident in a quiet way. His posture was straight, but there was a softness in his eyes that she recognized immediately, the same vulnerability she had first seen in him years ago. And then it hit her. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it really be him? The boy she had rescued from fear and neglect so many years ago? He smiled, shy but warm, and spoke first. "Hello? I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said. His voice carried calmness, confidence, and just a hint of nerves. I think you remember me." Tears threatened to fill her eyes. She tried to steady herself. "Of course I remember you," she said softly, voice shaking. "I would never forget you." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I wanted to see you. I wanted to say, thank you, for everything." For a moment she didn't speak. Words failed her. All those years of worry, patience, and care had led to this moment. And now he was standing here, fully grown, before her, acknowledging the impact of her kindness. She invited him inside, and they sat down together in the small living room. The sunlight streaming through the windows made the room warm, almost glowing, and she felt a mix of relief, pride, and joy she had never anticipated. He spoke first, recounting his life over the years. He talked about school, the challenges he had faced, the victories he had achieved, and the friends he had made. He spoke honestly about the lingering effects of trauma, the moments of fear, the nights when memories haunted him, and the struggle to trust others fully. She listened quietly, letting him speak without interruption, absorbing every word with a mixture of pride and compassion. "I wouldn't be here today without you," he said finally. "You believed in me when no one else did. You saved me. You gave me a chance to live a life I could have never imagined on my own. I can never repay you enough." She reached out and placed a hand gently on his. "You've already repaid me," she said softly. "You've grown into a strong, kind, and thoughtful person. That's more than I could ever ask for." He shook his head, determination in his eyes. "No, I want to do more. I want to give back. I want to honor what you did for me in a way that matters. You changed my life, and I don't want to just say thank you. I want to show it." They spent hours talking, reminiscing about the past, sharing laughter, and reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. He told her stories from his teenage years, some of the struggles, some of the triumphs. She listened, amazed at his resilience, the growth he had achieved, and the kindness he now carried in his heart. As the evening progressed, he grew quiet, thoughtful. "I've thought a lot about how to repay you," he said. "And I realize that it's not about money or gifts. It's about continuing the cycle of kindness you started for me. I want to help others the way you helped me. I want to be someone who makes a difference." She smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "That's all I ever hoped for," she said. "Kindness spreads and it's never wasted. You are proof of that." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small notebook, worn and filled with sketches and writings. "I've been working on this for years," he said. "Some of these are about my experiences, my memories, and my dreams. I want you to have it. It's my way of showing how much you inspired me." She opened the notebook carefully, her eyes scanning the pages. Each sketch was filled with emotion, Each note carried thought and reflection. She saw the child she had once known, the fear, the sadness, but also the young man he had become, hopeful, resilient, and determined. Tears fell freely as she turned each page, feeling the depth of his gratitude and the proof of the impact her care had created. They talked long into the night, not just about the past, but about the future. He shared his plans for education, career, and ways to help others. She offered guidance, suggestions, and encouragement, knowing that the world he was entering was vast and challenging, but she also knew he was ready. He had grown through every challenge, learned from every struggle, and emerged with empathy, courage, and wisdom. At one point, she asked him about the moments that had been hardest for him, the times he had felt most alone or afraid. He spoke openly, recounting nights of fear, days of doubt, and moments when he wasn't sure he could trust anyone. She listened, her heart aching at the memories, but also filled with pride at his ability to confront and articulate those experiences. "You were always there," he said finally. "Even when I didn't understand it, even when I couldn't trust anyone, you never left. That made all the difference. I want to be that difference for someone else someday." The woman felt a mixture of emotions, joy, relief, and a quiet sense of completion. Years of worry, patience, and sacrifice had culminated in this moment. She had never imagined that her small acts of kindness could lead to such profound growth and gratitude, and now, seeing the young man before her, she understood fully the ripple effect of compassion. They made plans together. Not grand plans, not complicated promises, but small, meaningful steps to ensure that his desire to give back became reality. They talked about volunteering, mentoring, and supporting children who were in situations similar to what he had faced. He wanted to create a space where kids could feel safe, heard, and valued, just as she had done for him. As the night wore on, they sat in comfortable silence, each reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. She thought about the frightened child hiding in the streets all those years ago, the long nights of worry, and the quiet victories that had built the foundation for this reunion. He thought about the woman who had saved him, guided him, and believed in him when no one else did. Both understood that this moment was not just about gratitude, but about the continuation of a legacy of kindness. Before leaving, he embraced her tightly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saving me, believing in me, and showing me what love and care really mean. I will never forget you, and I will make sure others never forget the power of kindness either." She hugged him back, tears streaming down her face. "You've already made me proud," she said. "Just by being who you are. Keep going. Keep shining. And never forget that even the smallest acts can change the world." As he walked away into the night, she watched him with a mixture of pride and awe. The boy who had once been so small and afraid had grown into a man capable of kindness, courage, and love. And she realized that her journey with him, though it had begun with fear and uncertainty, had created something far greater than either of them could have imagined. That night, she sat quietly in her living room, thinking about the years that had passed. She reflected on the challenges, sacrifices, and moments of doubt, and she understood fully that every act of care, every decision to stay and support him, had mattered. She smiled, knowing that kindness, when given freely and without expectation, could create ripples that lasted a lifetime. Little did she know, this was only the beginning. The young man, inspired by her unwavering support, was already thinking of ways to help others, to continue the chain of compassion, and to honor the life-changing gift she had given him. The reunion had not only healed the past but planted seeds for the future, showing that true kindness always returns in ways even the heart cannot yet imagine. After the reunion, life took on a new sense of purpose for both of them. The young man, now fully aware of the gift he had received, carried a quiet determination to honor the woman who had changed his life. He began thinking carefully about how he could repay her kindness in ways that mattered, not through money or material things, but by creating positive change in the lives of others, just as she had done for him. He started small at first. He volunteered at local community centers, helping children with homework, reading stories, and spending time with those who, like he once had, needed guidance and care. The woman watched from a distance at first, seeing him quietly nurture the same values she had instilled. She was amazed at how naturally he reached out, how patiently he listened, and how carefully he encouraged the children around him. Every interaction reminded her of the frightened boy he had once been, and now seeing him confident and compassionate brought a sense of fulfillment she could not have imagined. Soon, they began to collaborate more closely. Together, they developed small initiatives aimed at helping children in vulnerable situations. They organized reading sessions, workshops, and mentoring programs designed to provide safety, encouragement, and practical support. The young man brought energy, ideas, and youthful perspective, while she offered wisdom, guidance, and experience. Together they became a team, united by a shared vision of helping others overcome challenges and thrive. Through these efforts, they touched many lives. Children who had once been neglected or forgotten began to flourish. Parents expressed gratitude for the guidance their children received. Teachers noticed improvements in confidence and behavior, and the local community started to recognize the impact of consistent care and mentorship. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced the importance of their work and highlighted the ripple effect that acts of kindness could create. The woman often reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She remembered the first time she had found the child hiding in the streets, frightened and alone. She remembered the long nights of worry, the small victories, the slow but steady growth, and the moments of doubt when she questioned whether her efforts were making a difference. Now seeing him standing confidently, inspiring others, and creating opportunities for children in need, she understood fully that every choice, every act of care had mattered. One afternoon, they visited a local community center together. The young man led a workshop with several children, showing them how to express their feelings through art and storytelling. She watched quietly, smiling as he patiently encouraged each child, praised their efforts, and shared gentle advice. His confidence, empathy, and understanding were remarkable, a living testament to the care and guidance he had received throughout his childhood. Later, as they walked through the quiet streets together, he turned to her. "I've learned something important," he said. "Kindness isn't just about helping someone once. It's about believing in them, being there consistently, and showing that someone cares no matter what. You taught me that, and now I want to live it every day." She nodded, feeling a deep sense of pride. "You've already learned it well," she said, "and the world is better because you're living it." That's the true reward. Over time, their work grew in scope and impact. The programs they initiated reached more children, involved more volunteers, and inspired other members of the community to step forward. Stories of transformation began to circulate. Children who had once been withdrawn or fearful were now thriving, pursuing education, and expressing their creativity. Each success story reinforced the idea that one act of courage and kindness could spark a chain reaction, creating opportunities that seemed impossible at first. The young man continued to check in regularly with the woman, sharing updates, seeking guidance, and discussing ideas for new initiatives. Their relationship, built on years of trust, care, and mutual respect, became even stronger. He was no longer the child in need. He was a young adult making conscious choices to extend the same care and compassion he had received, and she was there quietly supporting, guiding, and celebrating each step of his journey. One evening, after a long day of organizing activities at the community center, they sat together on a bench outside watching the sunset. The sky was painted in warm shades of orange and gold, and the quiet beauty of the moment mirrored the peace they both felt inside. The young man spoke softly, almost to himself. "I never imagined my life could be this way. I never imagined I could feel safe, happy, and hopeful. But you made it possible. You believed in me when no one else did,